When my husband stood in front of our children on Christmas morning and said he'd spent months finding the perfect gifts for each of them, I watched from the kitchen doorway in silence. I didn't interrupt. I didn't correct him. I just pulled out my phone and photographed him accepting their grateful hugs. 3 months later, when his lawyer claimed he was the primary caregiver in our custody hearing, I opened my laptop and showed the judge a spreadsheet with 127 itemized purchases, all charged to my card, all matching the wish lists I'd handwritten with each child in October. My daughter looked at her father and said, "You told us you bought my art set." He had no answer. My name is Bryn Westfield. I'm 35 years old, and I work as a procurement manager for a medical supply company in Charlotte, North Carolina. My husband, Graham, is 38 and works in pharmaceutical sales. We have 2 children. Iris is 11 and Jasper is 8. For 12 years, I thought we were building a partnership, but last Christmas showed me the truth, and by March, everything I thought I knew about my marriage had unraveled completely. The trouble started in early October when I sat down with Iris and Jasper to plan Christmas. I do this every year, not because I'm obsessive, but because I'm organized. I work in procurement. Planning is what I do. I gave each child a notebook and asked them to write down everything they wanted, no matter how big or small. Iris filled 3 pages with specific requests: a digital drawing tablet with a particular model number, a set of manga volumes, roller skates in teal, a weighted blanket, and about 15 other items she'd researched carefully. Jasper's list was shorter but equally precise: a specific Lego architecture set, a beginner's telescope, a skateboard, basketball shoes, and a few video games. I took those lists and created a master spreadsheet: item, description, price, vendor, status. I tracked everything. Over the next 2 months, I ordered each item as I found sales or availability. Every purchase went on my credit card. Every shipping confirmation came to my email. Every receipt was filed in a folder on my desktop labeled Christmas 2024. Graham was traveling constantly for work that fall. He'd be gone for days at a time, coming home exhausted, distracted. When I asked if he wanted to help with Christmas shopping, he'd wave me off. "You're so much better at this stuff than me. Just handle it. I'll reimburse you." He never did. By mid-December, I had everything wrapped and hidden in the basement storage room. I'd spent just over $1,800, all from my account. Graham hadn't contributed a single dollar, but I didn't think much of it. We'd always kept separate finances by preference, contributing to a joint account for household expenses. Christmas gifts had always come from my personal funds, and I'd never minded. It felt like my way of showing love. Christmas Eve arrived cold and clear. The kids were buzzing with excitement, barely touching their dinner. Graham got home around 7, carrying a bottle of wine and a bag from the liquor store. He kissed my cheek, ruffled Jasper's hair, and settled into the living room to watch a basketball game while I cleaned up from dinner and did the final wrapping touches on a few last-minute gifts. That night, after the kids were asleep, Graham and I arranged presents under the tree. He carried boxes up from the basement while I positioned them artfully, checking name tags, adjusting bows. At one point, he picked up the large flat box containing Iris's drawing tablet. "This is the tablet she wanted, right?" he asked. "Yes. She's going to lose her mind." He smiled. "I can't wait to see her face." Something about the way he said it made me pause. "Graham, you know I bought all this, right?" He set the box down carefully. "Of course, you did an amazing job, like always. I just want to make sure you remember that tomorrow, when they open everything." He looked at me strangely. "Why wouldn't I remember?" "No reason. I'm just tired." We went to bed. I lay awake for a while, staring at the ceiling, trying to shake the odd feeling of unease that had settled over me. Christmas morning came early. Jasper burst into our room at 6:12 a.m., followed closely by Iris. They dragged us downstairs, practically vibrating with anticipation. I made coffee while Graham settled onto the couch, his phone already in his hand, ready to take pictures and videos. For the next hour, wrapping paper flew. The kids opened gift after gift, their excitement building with each one. Iris unwrapped the drawing tablet and actually screamed. Jasper assembled his telescope on the living room floor immediately, ignoring the other unopened boxes. And then, as I was gathering torn paper into a garbage bag, I heard Graham say something that made my hands still. Jasper, buddy, I'm so glad you like the telescope. I did a lot of research to find one that would be good for a beginner, but still high quality. Jasper looked up at him, his face glowing. You picked this out? I wanted to make sure it was perfect. I know you've been interested in space. Iris turned from where she was testing her new roller skates. Dad, the drawing tablet is exactly the one I wanted. How did you know? Graham smiled. Because I listened. I always pay attention to what you guys want. I stood frozen in the doorway to the kitchen, a trash bag dangling from my hand, watching as my children hugged their father, thanking him over and over for being so thoughtful, so generous, so perfect. Graham caught my eye over Iris's head. He didn't look guilty. He looked pleased, proud even. I said nothing. I turned and walked back into the kitchen, setting the trash bag down carefully, my hands shaking slightly. I pulled out my phone and opened the photo app. Then I walked back to the living room doorway and took 3 photos of Graham sitting on the couch, surrounded by our children, basking in their gratitude. Later that afternoon, Graham's parents came over for Christmas dinner. The kids immediately pulled them into the living room to show off their gifts, talking over each other in their excitement to share. I was in the kitchen checking on the roast when I heard Graham's mother, Diane, say, "Graham, you really outdid yourself this year. These are wonderful gifts." Graham's voice carried clearly. "I just wanted to make sure the kids had a special Christmas. They deserve it." His father, Robert, clapped him on the shoulder. "You're a good dad. These kids are lucky." I gripped the edge of the counter, my knuckles white. From the living room, I heard Iris say, "Grandma, Dad spent months picking everything out. He even got the exact model of tablet I wanted." "That's because your father loves you very much," Diane replied warmly. I closed my eyes, took a slow breath, and forced myself to finish preparing dinner. All through the meal, Graham's parents praised him for being such a devoted father, such a thoughtful gift giver, such a family man. Graham accepted every compliment with humble grace.
The kids echoed the praise, and I sat at the end of the table, carving turkey, passing dishes, smiling when appropriate, and saying nothing. That night, after Graham's parents left and the kids were in bed, I confronted him in our bedroom. He was scrolling through his phone, still in the clothes he'd worn all day. "Why did you tell the kids you bought their Christmas presents?" He didn't look up. "What? This morning, you told Jasper you researched his telescope. You told Iris you picked out her tablet. You let them think you bought everything." Graham set his phone down, his expression neutral. "I didn't say I bought everything. I said I picked things out, which is true. I helped you decide what to get." "No, you didn't. I showed you their lists once in November. You glanced at them for 30 seconds and said, 'Looks good, whatever you think.' That's not helping." He sighed. "Bryn, why are you making this into a thing? It's Christmas. The kids are happy. Does it really matter who gets credit?" "Yes, it matters. I spent 2 months planning, shopping, tracking down specific items, staying up late wrapping. I spent $1,800, and you took credit for all of it." "I didn't take credit. You're being dramatic." "You told your parents you picked out all their gifts." "Because I didn't want to sit there and say, 'Actually, Bryn did everything.'" "That would have been awkward." I stared at him. "Awkward for who?" "For everyone. Look, I appreciate what you did. You always do an amazing job with Christmas, but you don't need constant recognition for it."
I don't need constant recognition. I just need you not to lie to our children." Graham's jaw tightened. "I didn't lie. I just didn't correct their assumptions. There's a difference." "That's exactly what lying is." He stood up. "I'm not doing this. You're upset because you feel underappreciated. I get it. But attacking me on Christmas isn't the solution." He grabbed his pillow and left the room. I heard him go downstairs to the guest room. I sat on the edge of our bed, my hands folded in my lap, staring at the closed door. Something fundamental had shifted, and I couldn't unsee it. The next few weeks were tense. Graham and I moved around each other carefully, speaking only about logistics, schedules, bills, the kids' activities. He was traveling more than ever, sometimes 4 days a week. When he was home, he was distant, irritable. In mid-January, he told me he wanted to separate. We were sitting at the kitchen table after the kids had gone to bed. He'd poured himself a scotch. I was drinking tea. "I don't think this is working anymore," he said abruptly. I set my mug down. "What isn't working?" "Us. This marriage. I feel like we're roommates, not partners, and I think we'd both be happier apart. Is there someone else?" He hesitated. "I've been talking to someone. Nothing physical, but she makes me feel like myself again, like I matter. And I don't make you feel like you matter? Not the way I need." I looked at him for a long moment. "You're leaving because I called you out on Christmas." "I'm leaving because we don't work. The Christmas thing was just a symptom." "Of what?" "Of you always needing to be right, always needing to prove you're the one who does everything." I laughed, a short, bitter sound. "Graham, I do everything. I manage this household, I coordinate the kids' schedules, I plan every holiday, every birthday, every vacation. You show up and take credit. That's not fair." "Then tell me what you've contributed in the last 6 months besides a paycheck and complaints." He finished his scotch and stood. "I'm done with this conversation. I'm moving out next week." He did. By the end of January, Graham had rented an apartment across town. The kids were devastated. Iris cried herself to sleep for a week. Jasper got quiet, withdrawn, refusing to talk about his feelings. I held it together for them during the day, then fell apart at night after they were asleep. In February, Graham filed for divorce. His lawyer sent a letter outlining his demands: 50-50 custody, equal division of assets, and no alimony, despite the fact that I'd been supporting household expenses for years while he'd been funneling money into his own accounts. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Kendra Morrison, read through the filing and raised her eyebrows. "He's claiming he's been the primary caregiver for the children." I blanked. "What?" "Here, Section 12. He states that he's been primarily responsible for the children's emotional, educational, and recreational needs. He's using this to argue for 50-50 custody." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "That's not true." "Can you prove it?" "Yes." I went home that night and opened my laptop. I spent 6 hours building a document. I pulled bank statements showing every expense I'd paid for the kids: school fees, activity registrations, medical bills, clothing, supplies. I pulled my calendar showing every appointment I'd attended, every school event, every practice and rehearsal I'd driven them to. And then I opened the Christmas folder. I created a side-by-side comparison. On the left, the handwritten wish lists Iris and Jasper had made in October, still saved in my desk drawer. On the right, a spreadsheet of every item I'd purchased, with receipts, order confirmations, and delivery notifications. Every single purchase matched an item on their lists. Every single purchase was charged to my card. Every single receipt had my name. At the bottom, I added a note: "On December 25th, 2024, Graham Westfield told our children he had personally selected and purchased all of their Christmas presents. This was false. He contributed $0 and selected 0 items. The children believed his claims and thanked him repeatedly throughout the day. I attached the photos I'd taken of Graham on Christmas morning, sitting on the couch accepting hugs and praise. I sent everything to Kendra. The mediation hearing was scheduled for March 15th. We met in a conference room at the family court building. Kendra sat beside me. Graham and his lawyer sat across the table. The mediator, a calm-voiced woman named Sandra Liu, sat at the head. What I hadn't expected was for the kids to be there. Sandra explained that children over the age of 10 could participate in custody mediations if they wished. Iris had requested to be present. Jasper, at 8, was too young, but Iris had asked if he could come anyway. Sandra allowed it. They sat in chairs against the wall, looking small and nervous. Iris held Jasper's hand. Sandra opened the session by outlining Graham's custody proposal: alternating weeks, equal holidays, equal decision-making. Then she asked if I had any objections. Kendra opened her briefcase. We do. Mr. Westfield has misrepresented his level of involvement with the children. We have documentation showing that Mrs. Westfield has been the primary caregiver in every measurable way. Graham's lawyer frowned. That's a serious accusation. It's a factual statement. Kendra pulled out a 3-ring binder and slid copies across the table. 1 to Sandra, 1 to Graham's lawyer, 1 to Graham. I watched his face as he opened it. Confusion, then recognition, then something that looked like panic. Sandra flipped through the pages. What am I looking at? Financial records showing Mrs. Westfield has paid for 100% of child-related expenses over the past 3 years. School tuition, medical bills, activity fees, clothing, supplies. Mr. Westfield's contributions total $0. Graham leaned forward. That's because we have separate finances. I pay the mortgage and utilities, which total approximately $2,800 per month. Mrs. Westfield's child-related expenses average $1,900 per month. In addition, she contributes $1,500 monthly to groceries and household supplies. Her financial contribution exceeds yours. Graham's lawyer shuffled papers. Financial contribution isn't the only measure of caregiving. Agreed, Kendra said. Which is why we've also documented time-based caregiving. She pulled out another section. My calendar, color-coded. Green for school events, blue for medical appointments, yellow for activities, red for holidays and birthdays. Over the past year, I'd attended 87 school-related events, 14 medical appointments, and driven the kids to 156 practices, lessons, and playdates. Graham's calendar showed 11 school events and 2 medical appointments. Sandra studied the cages. This is quite detailed. Mrs. Westfield is a procurement manager. Documentation is her profession. Graham's face was red. Just because Bryn writes everything down doesn't mean I wasn't involved. Then let's talk about Christmas, Kendra said. She flipped to the final section, the wish lists, handwritten in Iris and Jasper's uneven writing, the spreadsheet showing 127 purchases, the receipts, each one labeled with date, vendor, amount, and item. In October, Mrs. Westfield sat with each child and created detailed wish lists. She then spent 2 months acquiring every item. She spent $1,847. Mr. Westfield contributed nothing. Graham's lawyer picked up the papers. Mr. Westfield has already stated that they maintain separate finances. This proves nothing about caregiving. It does when he took credit for it, Kendra said calmly. She pulled out the photos I'd taken. Graham on the couch, Iris hugging him, Jasper showing him the telescope. On Christmas morning, Mr. Westfield told the children he had personally selected and purchased their gifts. He accepted their thanks. He allowed his parents to praise him for being a thoughtful father. Mrs. Westfield said nothing. Sandra looked at Graham. Is this accurate? Graham shifted in his seat. I may have let them believe I was more involved than I was. You lied to them, I said quietly. He looked at me, his eyes hard. I was trying to be supportive, to make Christmas special. By erasing me? I wasn't erasing you. Iris's voice cut through the room, high and clear. Yes, you were. Everyone turned. She was standing now, her hands clenched at her sides. Iris, sweetheart, you don't have to. Graham started. You told me you picked out my drawing tablet, Iris said, her voice shaking. You said you did research. You said you knew exactly what I wanted. But Mom was the one who sat with me for an hour looking at different models online. Mom was the one who asked about pressure sensitivity and screen size. Mom was the one who found it on sale and made sure it arrived before Christmas. Graham's face went pale. I didn't mean... And my roller skates, and my manga books, and my weighted blanket. Mom bought all of it. And you let me thank you for all of it. Jasper spoke up, his voice quieter. You said you researched my telescope. I did look at telescopes with your mom. No, you didn't, I said. I asked you to help me pick one out. You said you were busy. I chose it based on reviews and recommendations from an astronomy forum. Sandra set down her papers. Mr. Westfield, did you intentionally mislead your children about your role in purchasing their gifts? Graham's jaw worked. I wanted them to see me as a good father. So you lied. I didn't think it was a big deal. It's a big deal to me, Iris said. Her eyes were wet, but her voice was steady. Because now I don't know what else you've lied about. The room fell silent. Sandra made notes on her legal pad. Finally, she looked up. Based on the evidence presented, it's clear that Mrs. Westfield has been the primary caregiver in both financial and time-based measures. The issue of misrepresenting contributions is concerning from a co-parenting perspective. Mr. Westfield, I'm going to recommend that custody be structured as primary residence with Mrs. Westfield, with you having parenting time every other weekend and one evening per week. We can revisit this in 6 months based on demonstrated involvement. Graham's lawyer started to object, but Graham held up a hand. It's fine, Sandra continued. Additionally, I'm recommending family therapy for all 4 of you. The trust issues here need to be addressed. Iris sat down, pulling Jasper close. He leaned into her, his face buried in her shoulder. The mediation ended 30 minutes later. As we left the building, Iris walked beside me, her hand in mine. Jasper held my other hand. Graham walked ahead with his lawyer, not looking back. In the parking lot, Iris stopped. Mom, I'm sorry. For what, honey? For believing him, for not realizing you did everything. I knelt down so we were eye level. Iris, you were manipulated. That's not your fault. You loved your dad, and you believed him because you wanted to. That's normal. But I should have known. You know now. That's what matters. Jasper tugged on my sleeve. Mom, are we going to be okay? I pulled them both into a hug. Yes, we're going to be fine. That night, after the kids were in bed, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the back porch. My phone buzzed. A text from Graham. I hope you're happy. You turned my own kids against me. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I replied, I didn't turn them against you. I just stopped protecting your lies. I blocked his number. 6 months later, things had settled into a new rhythm. Iris and Jasper spent every other weekend with Graham. He was trying harder, I could see that. He asked about their schoolwork, he attended Jasper's soccer games, he took Iris to an art supply store and let her pick out new supplies. Small steps, but steps nonetheless. As for me, I'd stopped trying to be perfect. I let dishes sit in the sink overnight. I ordered takeout when I was too tired to cook. I said no to volunteer commitments I didn't have time for. I focused on what mattered, being present with my kids. One evening in late September, Iris came downstairs while I was folding laundry. She sat on the couch beside me, picking up a towel to help. Mom, can I ask you something? Always? Why didn't you tell us the truth on Christmas, when Dad was taking credit? I paused, setting down a shirt. Because I didn't want to ruin Christmas for you. I wanted you to be happy. And you were happy. That mattered more than credit. But it wasn't fair to you. No, it wasn't. But sometimes you have to choose between being right and being kind. I chose kind that day. What about at the mediation? That wasn't kind. No, that was necessary. There's a difference. She nodded slowly. I think I get it. We folded in comfortable silence for a while. Then Iris said, Mom, I want to help with Christmas this year. I smiled. Yeah? Yeah. Can we do the lists together like we always do? And then can I help you find stuff? I'd love that. And, Mom, yeah? Thank you for everything. I know I don't say it enough, but I see you. I see everything you do. I pulled her into a hug, blinking back tears. That means more than you know, honey. That December, Iris and I planned Christmas together. She helped me research gifts for Jasper, tracking down the exact Lego set he wanted. She made a spreadsheet of her own, listing items, prices, and vendors. She even wrapped presents. Her tape job's messy but earnest. On Christmas morning, when Jasper opened his gifts, Iris caught my eye and winked. And when he said, Mom, this is awesome, she added, Mom and I picked it out together. Jasper grinned. You guys are the best. I looked at my children sitting in the glow of the Christmas tree and felt something settle in my chest. Not happiness exactly, not yet, but something close, something like peace. Because the truth was out. The receipts had spoken, and my children knew who'd been showing up all along, not because I'd told them, but because they'd finally learned to look at the evidence, and that was the greatest gift I could have given them.
You've just stepped into her revenge side, where every wound finds its justice, and every silence ends with truth. If her story struck a chord, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps these stories alive. Another secret waits in the next video. See how her revenge begins.